Welcome to the Sober Strength Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Karajet. Thank you for being here. We've got an awesome episode for you. It's a topic that I've been wanting to really dive deep on for a while. Dr. Brooke Scheller joined us for the show. Dr. Scheller is a doctor of clinical nutrition, celebrated author, and founder of Functional Sobriety, which is a nutrition-based program for alcohol reduction. She's the author of a celebrated book called How to Eat to Change How You Drink. So we went deep, got her recommendations, which she pulls from her book, which is amazing. We talked about supplementation and just went kind of really deep on this topic. So my hope is, and our hope is, that when you walk away from this, you get some practical tools and steps that you can take to add nutrition into your tool belt as a powerful tool to help with your mental health goals, and then specifically your sober curious or complete sobriety goals. So great episode. Hope you enjoy it. Quick kind of reminder or maybe announcement if you don't know, the Altum Fitness app is live. You can find it on the App Store. You can go to our website at altumfitness.com to find it. It is a place where you can find 20 plus very specific fitness programs, whether you're trying to lose weight, gain muscle, run a 5K, or even run a half marathon. There's different programs in there for you. There's countdown timers, video demonstrations, everything that you can need to have a successful fitness app. And also, when you download the app, you get access to our Altum Fitness community where there's forums, resources, all sorts of PDFs to kind of go deeper in not just fitness and nutrition, but also in habit change. There's our flagship AF30 alcohol reset course in there. And what I'm most excited about is everything I just mentioned is free for veterans. That's right, free for veterans. You can go to our website, verify your military service, or if you're active duty personnel, it's free for you as well. You get access to all of that for free. If you're not a veteran, it's cheap for you as well. Just $9.99 a month for everything I just mentioned. So go to our website, check it out. You can also find it on the App Store. Without further ado, it's my absolute pleasure to bring to you Dr. Brooke Scheller. Let's go deep. Welcome to the Sober Strength Show, Dr. Scheller. Thanks for being here today. How are you?
I'm good, Jesse. Thank you so much for having me. And I love the irony that we both grew up and graduated from basically almost the same high school.
Ridiculous. I can't get the smile off my face. Just to bring the audience into our little inside experience there, we were just chatting offline and I asked, where are you from? New Jersey. I said, me too. What town? And she literally, Dr. Scheller, is from the same exact town as me. And then we keep moving. It's like, well, I went to Rutgers University. She's like, so did I. This is cool.
Funny. We're the same person, apparently.
Small world.
Small world.
So we're here to talk about nutrition. I'm stoked because we have not done a deep dive on this show about nutrition. We've talked about it peripherally around like fitness. We've talked about, believe it or not, supplements to support drinking goals, sober curious, fully sober, whatever that is. But we're going to do a deep dive in your area of specialty, which is basic. I mean, you have a book, How to Eat to Change How You Drink. So I always do like to start, though, Dr. Scheller, if it's okay with you. The question would be, how did you choose this path? Or maybe why did you choose the path that you're on now and what you do?
Well, thank you so much for having me. And this is such an important topic, and I'm glad you're covering it. And not surprised that you haven't covered it, because somehow nutrition has not been a huge discussion as it relates to sobriety, but I really believe it's a key component of our alcohol-free journey. It's a key component of supporting our mental health, our physical bodies. And we often think of nutrition, to support fitness, to support weight loss goals, to manage blood sugar and those kinds of popularized topics, but we don't always think of it in the way that I believe we should be thinking about it for mental health and supporting an alcohol-free lifestyle. So I'm really glad we're covering it. And I will say that I'm not sure I chose this area. I think this area chose me. I'm a doctor of nutrition by trade and studied for many, many years, have a bachelor's, master's, and doctorate in nutrition, but never anticipated that I would ultimately focus on alcohol freedom and sobriety and mental health. but I embarked on my own sobriety journey. I got sober in 2021, June of 2021. Like so many people, the pandemic really tipped me into an unhealthy arena. My drinking had always been quite heavy, but at that time, I really found myself losing a lot of control and struggling with this idea of being a health expert, a doctor of nutrition, and not able to control this area of my life. And, I got sober in some of the traditional 12-step rooms and started following a lot of folks on Instagram and a lot of sober influencers, and was looking around and realizing that nobody was talking about the physiology. No one was talking about the way that alcohol affects the body and addressing that piece as part of our alcohol-free recovery. And so I decided that it was my job to do that, because I really believe that it's 50% of the puzzle. That part of the reason why the statistics for alcohol reduction and sobriety are quite glum is because we're not addressing the physiological components of the body. And, we see so much success and really, really impactful improvements through communities, through AA, other communities, but also mental health support, psychotherapy, all those other avenues are key. But if we're not looking at and addressing the, what's going on in the body, what's causing cravings, what's contributing to the reason why it makes it difficult for some of us to stop, then it can be really, really hard for us to sustain the journey.
Okay. So I'm going to, the 50% number that you threw out there, that's a huge number if we're talking about how important nutrition is. So would you say that, we'll start here, would unhealthy or improper nutrition, could that lead to a vulnerability to become addicted to not only alcohol, but other substances as well?
So it's more complicated than that. But what I'd like to say is when I began studying this area and diving deep into this, I started to break it down. And what I cover in the book is kind of my 3 key areas of my approach, which is called functional sobriety. And functional sobriety is a play on the idea of functional medicine, functional nutrition, essentially looking at the root cause reasons of what's going on in the body. And in this particular instance, the root cause of maybe why we drink and why it might be difficult for some of us to stop. So if we think about it through this lens of addressing the root cause, we look at areas like the gut and the gut microbiome. We look at things like nutrient levels and how deficiencies can contribute to anxiety and depression and mental health conditions that are oftentimes underlying reasons why we drink. We also look at other avenues like blood sugar and hormones, because all of these can also play a role in why we might have cravings, why we might drink. Now, the other component of that is this. When we consume alcohol, it has a physiological impact on our body. It isn't just a null substance like water that we drink and it, hydrates our cells and leaves. It is impacting our physiology when we consume it. It's having a direct impact on the gut microbiome and changing the bacterial colonies that survive in our gut. It's affecting the health of our gut lining and contributing to immune dysfunction. It's also contributing to imbalances in the hormonal system. That can be anything from sex hormones like estrogen, testosterone, but also blood sugar hormones, metabolism hormones, hunger and satiety hormones, right? So all of this to say that when we drink and we feel the effect of a hangover, for example, that is just a short-term example of the impact that alcohol is having on our body. So we need to be addressing this as part of our recovery program in order to have a sustainable and long-term sober life.
Okay, let's talk about then what would be some initial steps that you would suggest people take to start eating better, specifically for moving away from alcohol, but also in a general sense as well?
Yeah, so I document this in depth inside of the book. And some of the key areas that I focus on one of the big areas that I focus on is actually increasing protein. And part of the reason why is because there is a big connection between alcohol consumption and blood sugar dysregulation. That when we drink alcohol, it can have an impact on how our body naturally regulates blood sugar. And that is not just when we drink, but the more that we drink, there's actually a carryover effect that can happen. And there's a statistic from many years ago that I actually document in the book that says up to 90% of regular alcohol users experience blood sugar irregularities. And that's just about everybody, right? So if you're consuming alcohol a few times or more per week, there is a very good chance that you are dysregulated, you have dysregulated blood sugar. And what this means is that when we experience low blood sugar in particular, what do we often see? What often manifests is cravings for sugar, cravings for carbohydrates, and for those of us who drink, cravings for alcohol, right? So, well, what happens at the end of a long day when someone has a stressful day? It's 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon. I heard you talking about this on one of your other podcast episodes because I usually listen to an episode or two, right? That 5 o'clock time is a challenge for most people.
Yeah.
Well,
me.
Yeah.
Yep.
And worked for me too, right? Well, I actually recognized this in working with clients when I started doing the functional sobriety work and doing one-on-one sessions and group sessions with people. I had one client who came to me and said, you know, Dr. Brooke, I have to have that glass of wine at 5 o'clock. It gives me energy to get through the rest of the day. It gives me energy to do the laundry, to make dinner, to take care of the kids, whatever, you know, those chores might be. And I'm sitting here going, energy. Okay, she's needing energy. She's probably experiencing low blood sugar, right? Well, when we dig into it, we start to get down to, well, you know, when was the last time she had something to eat? Well, it was lunch 5 hours ago, right? Sometimes it's lunch was that long ago. Sometimes it's, well, I had something at 2:30, but it was, you know, a couple of cookies at work. Well, what's happening is we're having a little increase in blood sugar there and a drop in blood sugar. So what I find works really, really well, just very, very basic, like super simple things that you can implement if you're listening, is starting to increase your protein content throughout the day. So making sure you're getting protein at every single meal and snack. And then specifically focusing on having an afternoon snack somewhere in that 3 to 5 p.m. time frame. High protein, good source of carbs in there, because that I have clients who actually say that has cured their happy hour cravings.
There you go.
Right. And simply because what we're doing is we're giving the body what it needs. Oftentimes when we get that signal, that intense craving, it is our body sending a signal saying, I need something. Right. That reaction oftentimes is put alcohol on top. But if we stop and we peel back the layers a little bit and say, well, what do I really need? Do I need something to eat? Do I need a nap? Do I need to call a friend? And finding an alternative in that time, but making sure you're not going too long in between meals because that's going to considerably increase cravings.
Yeah. So, and since we're talking about protein, if someone is going to prioritize protein and eat it evenly distributed throughout the day, do you suggest that is animal protein, plant-based protein, or as long as you're getting it from clean, ethical sources?
Hey, everybody. It's your host, Jesse Karajak. Quick interruption of this podcast. Look, there's a multitude of ways that we all can and should look to improve our drinking habits, right? And we talk about them all the time on this show. Things like getting in a group, being honest with people, focusing on sleep and nutrition and exercise. I can go on and on. But what most people don't know, and frankly, I didn't know, is that there is an FDA-approved medication that you can start taking. It's easily accessible and private and affordable, and you can start taking it today and start experiencing powerful benefits within days. And again, I've done it. I'm blown away by it. And I want to get the word out so that as many people as possible know that is an option that they can and should use. So there's a company called OR Health. That's OAR health, you can text STRENGTH, that's STRENGTH, to 710710. Again, that's STRENGTH to 710710. You'll get a secure link. You can fill out an assessment. And if the medication is right for you, a licensed medical professional will prescribe it for you and privately, discreetly have it shipped to your home. You'll be one of over 35,000 people that have decided to take back control of their drinking through Oar Health. And 76% of Oar Health members report drinking less within just 2 weeks. So if you've been struggling, know that there is an incredibly powerful option out there for you. So again, STRENGTH to 710710 to see if it's a fit. And now back to the show.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I am a big proponent of animal-based protein.
Okay.
And the reason being is because so many key nutrients and amino acids being the building block, the foundation of our proteins, many of those amino acids and nutrients that are found in animal proteins are actually really key for brain and neurotransmitter production. So for example, many of those amino acids actually serve as the building blocks for things like dopamine, serotonin, for GABA, right? So if we want good, healthy brain function, we want to feel good, good mental health, then we need to be having a good amount of protein, and animal protein is going to be a better source of many of those amino acids.
Got it. On the blood sugar point that you made, at the time that I was drinking the most frequently was when I was in college. I was probably drinking 4 or 5 times a week, and maybe 3 or 4 of those were excessively. It's a whole nother story. But then I would also wake up and I would work out at some point in the afternoon or in the evening. And I found that for about a decade, I was having what felt like hypoglycemic, what is that called? Hypoglycemia, like where I would have this sharp, out of nowhere, sudden just drop of blood sugar. I would start sweating profusely. I would get very anxious, and I would have to just run for like orange juice or chocolate or something like that. There must have been some things going on in my blood sugar that were just, the alcohol was probably sending me through a roof. I don't know, but it makes sense.
Like those two things could be connected for sure. And again, like you said, and especially during college, right? Like you're probably waking up, you're not eating the healthiest thing. Maybe you're skipping lunch, then you're going to work out and you're just taking a protein shake, right? And so what ends up happening, at some point is you were probably riding low blood sugar most of the day. You worked out and maybe you ended up having a drop. But it sounds like those two things could be related. And a lot of folks experience this. And one really interesting thing about blood sugar, and I love this topic because I love talking about how it relates to mood and mental health side of things, because blood sugar gets such this wrap around like diabetes, and it becomes very clinical, and it becomes this kind of, topic maybe served or saved for older folks or something, right? But when we have low blood sugar, this manifests in all of us, right? It's that hangry feeling. We'll use that Snickers bar commercial of like, you turn into a monster basically when you're hangry, when your blood sugar is low. But this is a lot of times the reason why people are really irritable, why we get fatigued all of a sudden, why maybe we are having increases in anxiety. And a lot of us don't recognize that that is our body, again, sending this signal that blood sugar is low. And so getting used to that, or not used to it, but knowing the signs of when low blood sugar is happening can be really useful and helpful, and kind of leads into that next recommendation, which goes along with the protein piece. But I typically suggest people eating every 3 to 4 hours or so to stabilize that blood sugar, because you really do want to avoid getting into a trap where you have gone too long without eating. Again, that's going to make it really difficult not only to overcome a craving for alcohol, but what is the other thing that we grab when we're quitting? It's sugar, right? And that is the same. That's the reason why we have those sugar cravings, is because of this blood sugar mechanism. There's a lot of discussion about how that is, a dopamine component as well. And I really believe that it's both. I believe that we can have a lot of impact on that blood sugar regulation piece. And so, again, having something to eat every 3 to 4 hours, not going real long periods of time, and also having breakfast first thing in the morning. I know we've heard like long time ago, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. I don't necessarily think it's the most important meal of the day, but I do think that when we have something to eat within an hour or so of waking up, it is setting our cortisol and our stress hormones up for the day and our blood sugar up for the day to be more regulated. And I, because of that, typically advise against, especially for women early on, things like intermittent.
You beat me to it. Yeah. So talk a little bit more about that. Did you say that intermittent fasting is a practice that you would recommend?
It's so complicated because I work with a lot of folks who have longstanding health issues and longstanding, alcohol use issues. And I recognize the science behind intermittent fasting. I recognize that it is really beneficial for some. Men tend to do quite well with intermittent fasting. Some women do, and some women truly don't. And my feeling about it is this: if you try it and you find that you feel worse, if you find that, if weight loss is a goal of trying intermittent fasting and that's not happening, at least within the first couple of weeks, that your body may need more of that consistent blood sugar regulation in order to support it. So again, from the root cause perspective, my brain is always going to places like, is this person someone who has cortisol regulation issues? If they have had long-term stress, if they've had long-term drinking, I do cortisol testing on some of my one-on-one clients. And if we find that cortisol is really low or very dysregulated, then we find that those folks don't necessarily benefit from intermittent fasting practices. A lot of the people that I work with, and what I find in, in my niche specifically around sobriety and nutrition, is I work with a lot of people specifically who have other health concerns, who are really interested in health, nutrition, wellness, mindfulness. So they've adopted a lot of those practices and they need a little bit of that deeper root cause dive.
Got it. Fair enough. What would be a third step, a third key piece of advice?
Yeah. So in the third piece of advice I'd have is, again, a big component of the book is then focusing on how we utilize food to support different systems of the body. The book has 50 recipes in it. So it also has many of these foods. If you're, not a huge fan of beets, which I wasn't when I started my nutrition journey, but became a big fan of beets. Beets are one of my favorite foods for supporting liver health, also brain health and kind of oxygenation and energy production throughout the body. A lot of folks use beets in the fitness space because they help to, vascularize the system. So you can use it as like a pre-workout. But you can also use beets as a pre-work day, right? By having some with your breakfast in a smoothie, for example. Really, again, good for the brain, very rich in many of those B vitamins that we can become deficient in, and also really supportive of liver health and liver detoxification. So I love to talk about these different functional foods like beets, for example, and how we start to incorporate in foods really strategically in order to support the way that we feel and support some of these key areas that may have been affected from long-term alcohol use.
What there's so many different and opposing nutritional lifestyles. Just to name a couple, you have the ketogenic diet, you have plant-based diets, vegans, you have Mediterranean, things like that. Now I'm even hearing of like blue zone type diets. Would you say that there's a particular nutritional lifestyle or maybe 2 or 3 that you think are conducive with helping people that are moving away from addiction?
All right, let's talk about something I've been a huge fan of, Sunnyside. It's the #1 alcohol moderation app in the US, and what I love about it is that it fits perfectly into how I approach my own habits. For me, having a system to track and stay accountable is key. Whether it's tracking my workouts, nutrition, or in this case, my alcohol intake, I've personally used Sunnyside with great success. You set your weekly drink goals, you track what you drink, and you get the chance to start your day off with a win each morning. What I also love about Sunnyside is that there's no pressure to quit, no judgment, just a positive approach to helping you drink less at your own pace. 96% of people using Sunnyside report drinking less within just 90 days. That's why they are our digital app partner of choice at the Sober Strength podcast. So if you've been thinking about cutting back, check out Sunnyside, download the app today, and join thousands of others taking those first steps to a healthier relationship with alcohol.
Well, I think one of the key things is this. My goal in nutrition for sobriety is not creating this super overwhelming, complete lifestyle change that is going to maybe be a great way to distract yourself in the beginning, but might not be a sustainable long-term approach for you. So my goal is to really bring in super simple ways that you can start to adopt these nutritional changes. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go into these extreme dieting protocols, part of why, advise against the intermittent fasting piece, right? Again, my biggest fear with someone who's really trying to get through the days, the weeks without drinking is putting them to a state where they're irritable and they're hungry and they are, at a crossroads.
Yeah.
So, there are so many benefits to these different diets. Ketogenic diet, for example, is so well researched around supporting the brain and, conditions like epilepsy and Alzheimer's disease. And I think ultimately could be something that if you're a few months into your journey and you want to try to adopt some ketogenic principles for the short term can be beneficial. But my goal is to really have you bringing in more whole foods. So moving more kind of into a Mediterranean, I'll use quotes here, Mediterranean style diet, which is essentially just more fresh food, more produce, more lean proteins, choosing whole grains over refined grains, moving away maybe from a lot of that processed sugar packaged foods. And then also incorporating in, fish, for example, because that one's going to be so critical for brain health. So it really, for me, is about bringing in sustainable habits, having you start to introduce more of these simple concepts like simply getting more protein throughout the day. Again, depending on what your drinking history looks like and maybe how much time and effort you were putting into drinking versus your health, those changes can be really big and impactful. And so I always err on the side of caution when it comes to replacing one addiction with a new addiction, which can sometimes burn out and cause us to fall off those habits as well.
I love that because you're being considerate of and compassionate with people and recognizing how hard it is, and just focus on the primary goal as your client, right? Which is to achieve their alcohol goals, whether that's sobriety or not. I love that. And another anecdote, but I remember when I was really, really dialed in and focused on counting calories and hitting macro goals. And I remember when I wasn't logging meals or if I was objectively eating more calories than I planned, it was just another kind of like loss or failure in my day. And it got to a point where even though it was well intended and I was being very, disciplined around it, it wound up being a source of negative emotions as opposed to what it was intended to do. And I just remember feeling a baseline of really just uncomfortable intention around eating because I was like, oh, I gotta log this. And I can see how, if I'm also simultaneously just trying to get through another day without drinking, and then you throw that on top of it, it would probably it would be more hurtful than helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would rather someone spend their time, especially in early sobriety or in the early days of changing their drinking habits, I don't want you to spend, to have to spend a ton of time tracking your macros, trying to learn how to track macros, trying to track your fat intake so that you're getting into ketosis and all of those things, which is creating more stress. And instead, having you focus your time and energy on mindfulness, on meditation, on getting involved in some community support, listening to podcasts or books on sobriety and engaging in that rather than hyper-focusing in this other area and it becoming, the sobriety piece taking the back seat.
Yeah. And it's almost, as I talk to you, my tendency when I talk about nutrition is to always bring in fitness and aesthetics and body composition. And as I keep looking at you and hearing you, I have to keep kind of pulling back like, no, that's not the primary goal for somebody in recovery, right? And maybe that's the next goal or the goal after that, right?
1,000%. It is the secondary goal. And it's once people get to that place where it isn't, the daily kind of thought has to be around not drinking or, adjusting lifestyle habits. And it's more of what often happens is this, right? From an aesthetic standpoint, someone quits drinking and one of two things happens. They kind of quickly lose a little bit of weight and then they plateau. Or they come in, they think they're going to lose weight and they don't necessarily lose weight, right? Well, what we do is we want to work on focusing and sustaining that sobriety habit before we start making other tweaks and changes that might support them. And again, it's going to depend person to person because someone might come in with a ton of background knowledge, fitness knowledge, nutrition knowledge, and be ready to jump into counting macros and getting a little bit more integrated. Whereas someone else who doesn't maybe have as much education on that does need to focus on the sobriety piece a little more specifically in the beginning.
Yeah, love that. And I know supplements are something that you talk about as well. And I do want to move in that direction, but still on the topic of like kind of fundamental blocking and tackling initial nutritional steps for someone in recovery, anything else that you would advise?
Well, I would definitely suggest checking out my book because I give a ton more suggestions here. But really, and this kind of moves into the supplement discussion, but really optimizing vitamins and minerals, right? So we talked about specific functional foods, but really just incorporating in a wide variety of plant foods that are going to give you all of those important B vitamins, your vitamin C, your magnesium, your zinc, and optimizing all of these areas because, again, not only are we becoming deficient in them when we drink and when we live in this stressful world and maybe don't eat a perfect diet, right? But all of these nutrients are key for energy production, how we, waking up and feeling energized in the morning. They're key for those neurotransmitters to become produced. So our dopamine, our serotonin requires these B vitamins, the zinc, the magnesium. So really optimizing for these different and making sure we're getting a wide range of food to support nutrient density. And this kind of leads into, again, the supplement conversation because we can utilize supplements to optimize these levels. With my one-on-one clients, I do run nutrient testing for a lot of folks. So we actually look at, are there specific nutrients that you're deficient in so that we can ensure that we are repleting those. But there are also a lot of general things that we can do. So, one of the number one supplements I put most of my sobriety clients on is an active B complex. So again, those B vitamins, so critical for energy production, for mood, and they are rocked, for lack of a better word, when we consume alcohol. There's a lot of research around specifically B1 deficiency when we drink heavily. And that's kind of like the one that for a long time has gotten a lot of popularity, but it is really impacting the entire B vitamin chain. So the B12, the B6, all of these nutrients that are critical for not only energy, mood, nervous system function, so our body's ability to relax and to cope with stress. Mm-hmm. So, not only optimizing through food, but then we can also bring the supplementation in to do that as well.
Okay. You mentioned different whole foods might be richer in micronutrients and natural vitamins. And 2 questions. What are just maybe like a couple good plant-based items that people can put on their dish along with protein to make sure they're getting as much micronutrients as they can from their food. And then a second question, and I can repeat it later. Do you find that the body absorbs vitamins, minerals, nutrients better when they're coming from food versus supplements, or is it negligible difference?
Hi, I'm Jesse Karajat, founder of Altum Fitness, where our mission is to help you break free from unhealthy habits and mindsets to find true physical and emotional fitness. The Altum Fitness app is a world-class fitness companion offering expertly designed workout programs personalized to any goal and any experience level. By joining this community, you'll gain access to top-notch expert training programs, nutritional guidance, habit change programs, and so much more, all tailored to help you achieve your unique goals. By joining Altum Fitness, you'll also gain access to our exclusive companion community, the Altum Tribe. In the Tribe, you'll find access to expert coaches, habit change programs, live challenges, events, and so much more. It's a space to connect, learn, grow, and be motivated as you navigate your fitness journey. For one low monthly subscription, you'll be granted full access to our fitness app, community, exclusive challenges and content, and so much more. So join Altum Fitness today and become part of our amazing community. Download now and let's live deep.
That's a good question. So to answer your first question, we've all heard that kind of eat the rainbow example, and it's a little old school, but making sure that you're getting a variety of colors is actually a good way to ensure you're getting a variety of nutrients. So, getting some greens every single day. So whether that is your lettuces, your broccoli, your cabbage, whatever that looks like from a greens perspective, getting some purples and blues. So berries, getting red cabbage, anything in that blue, purple, red category, getting some oranges and reds, right? Doing this can actually be a really simple way to ensure you're getting a little bit of everything. But also don't forget that things like nuts and seeds, for example, are really great sources of many of our minerals. So zinc and magnesium, selenium. So having a little bit of nuts and seeds every day and rotating them around, right? So having some almonds one day, another day having some pumpkin seeds or chia seeds, and always trying to, I like to maximize what I'm doing. So if I'm making a smoothie in the morning, I'm going to put, I'm going to put my beets in there. I'm going to put some protein powder. I'm going to put some chia seeds. I'm going to put some frozen cauliflower. I might put some greens in there, right? So thinking of ways that we can start to incorporate these things in, like you said, if you're making a salad, maybe you're adding the pumpkin seeds on top of the salad, or you're adding some turmeric powder, right, to add some of the additional anti-inflammatory benefit. So there's really a lot of easy ways to do this, and some of it is just getting into the habit, trying new things, and hopefully the book can help give you more of those recommendations too.
Yeah, 100%. And then the question is to whether your body absorbs better with its supplements or foods. Can I assume that it's foods, but supplements are a close second?
Well, I wish it was an easier answer, but here's how I will answer it, is the food system today has degraded some of the quality in terms of our produce. So what we're seeing now is soil is less potent in a lot of these minerals, and that can affect the quality of the produce that we're getting. So, the cabbage that we used to get 20 years ago maybe is a little less nutrient dense than the cabbage we get today. There are experts that say that it's really difficult to get full nutrient needs from food alone, and that supplementation can be really helpful. There are instances where I use whole food supplements, where basically it's foods ground up and into the supplement rather than synthetic forms. But there are also certain nutrients that, specifically I mentioned the active B complex. What that means is it has a specific form of these B vitamins that are really easily absorbed. So I always like to talk about ways to kind of optimize both of these areas in terms of, making sure you're getting high quality food, that you're getting, as fresh of food as possible, because that's going to impact it. But then when it comes to supplements, trying to choose the types of supplements that are going to give you the best bang for your buck and to make sure that you're absorbing them. The last kind of point I want to make on that is, unfortunately, alcohol does a number on our digestive system and our stomach function and how we absorb a lot of these vitamins and minerals. So some people can also benefit from a digestive enzyme that helps to restore some of that enzyme and stomach function and actually will allow us to absorb those nutrients more efficiently.
Got it. Okay. I know our time is running out. I do have one more question for you. I may even call it like a question 1 and question 1B. Question 1 is, what are some other kind of rapid fire supplements that people might consider taking? Mm-hmm. And then question 1B, and this might come a little bit out of left field, but I just thought of it because I think people are wondering this. The NA beverage space has exploded in the past 3 or 4 years. Some of them are fairly non-controversial, like just beers without alcohol, right? But then some of them you move into this middle ground where you're adding supplements into them. Hop water comes to mind, where you have adaptogens and nootropics, things like theanine and ashwagandha that are being put in there. And then you go kind of, further down the road and you're getting into more like THC products. First, again, a couple other supplements people might look into. And then if you can kind of just generally just give your opinion or response to the NA beverage explosion.
Yeah, I will say I actually have a lot of expertise in the non-alcoholic beverage explosion. I'm an advisor for a few different brands and for some non-alcoholic bars. So I can definitely go down that rabbit hole. You mentioned theanine. I use L-theanine supplementation often, especially when people have more of an anxiety-driven craving for alcohol. It can be a really, really great supplement to take when that craving comes up. So I use that a lot in the afternoon, but also to help in the evening with sleep. So that's a good one for people to check out and pretty safe and easy to use. I also use another amino acid called L-glutamine quite often for cravings as well. L-glutamine is used a lot in the space for improving and supporting the gut lining and healing and sealing the gut lining. But L-glutamine has some long-standing clinical use for alcohol cravings specifically. So what we do is we take a 500 milligram capsule of L-glutamine when you're having an alcohol craving. You open the capsule under your tongue and allow the contents of it to dissolve. And I have used that myself, and it works miracles. So L-glutamine and L-theanine, are two of my favorite craving-specific supplements. I use a lot of liver support supplements, so things like milk thistle is one big one with amazing research behind how it improves and supports liver health and regenerates the liver. And I also use a supplement called NAC quite often, N-acetylcysteine, another kind of key liver support supplement, but really supporting overall improvement of health and wellness. And then again, the omega-3s are key, the B vitamins are key. If I'm doing nutrient testing, I'm always looking at things like vitamin D and if that's deficient, because vitamin D deficiency has been so closely linked with, again, our anxiety and depression. And then I am sometimes using herbs like rhodiola is one of my favorites when it comes to the adaptogens. That one is a bit more stimulating, whereas the ashwagandha is a little bit more relaxing. So sometimes people use that at night for sleep. I love supplements, and I love, especially working with clients and being able to help provide them more specific and custom support with that. So there's more information about that and working with me at my website as well.
Got it. So then you'd be a proponent for these NA companies kind of tinkering with and coming out with safe, reliable use of supplements in their drinks?
So here's the thing. I think there's so many amazing products on the market today. I think, thank God, because it's really creating a world where the alcohol-free space is becoming more approachable and integrating more into regular life, like mocktails on menus and the availability of some of these at, shops that they wouldn't have been before, right? I think it does get into a hairy gray space because it isn't, supplements aren't regulated. There's no third-party testing on a, non-alcoholic drink. So, if there's 200 milligrams of theanine in there, do we know if that's really in there or not? I'm not sure. And then, we have a lot of products on the market today that are coming out with ingredients in them that I, as a healthcare professional, probably wouldn't just willy-nilly give to everyone without giving them disclaimers on this. So one example is an ingredient called 5-HTP. 5-HTP is a precursor to serotonin. Sounds good, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you're taking an SSRI, a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, a medication that increases serotonin, that is actually a conflict. So we don't want to give 5-HTP to someone on an SSRI. So if we're kind of using these and not giving the correct disclaimers or educating the consumer on what is in there, then there could be some potential issues that arise with them later on.
Yeah, which kind of goes back to consistently the importance of considering the source of what you're ingesting with your body. If you're going to go down that road, make sure the distributor or the manufacturer knows what they're doing and they're following the safe steps. Yeah.
I'm more of a proponent of, ones that are a little bit more straightforward. They have one ingredient in them maybe, or they have one or two, and they're safer ingredients rather than, I think there's a lot of stuff coming out that it is an unregulated zone right now. And I think we'll see what happens. And that kind of toes into the THCs and the kavas of the world. These are psychoactive. Kavas, not new in this world, but new specifically to the non-alcoholic beverage space. And kava does have psychoactive effects. I personally don't use any kava products. I've long learned about some of the controversy about their negative effects a long time ago. And because it does have some psychoactive properties, I avoid as a sober person. But I know many people who use them and like them. And I think, what's happening with the THC ones is a little bit controversial too. There's differing beliefs on the use of THC in people who are sober or trying to get sober. But that's, I think, a much longer conversation.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, so you've shared a ton, and of course, going to encourage my listeners to go out and get the book, How to Eat to Change How You Drink. Anything you haven't shared, any other advice that you think is really important for them to know or consider?
Yeah, I think it's a lot about just starting to explore how to incorporate some of these things into your lifestyle. I think, again, nutrition isn't an area that we immediately go to when it comes to supporting our alcohol-free journey, but we have to think of alcohol as a nutrition discussion, right? So for a long time, it's kind of been this other than piece, and alcohol is a beverage. It's something we consume just like any other food or drink.
Love that.
Right? So we have to think of it as part of this nutrition and health discussion and not an other than. And in that instance, we really want to help optimize you. The good news is this: if you feel like there's more progress to be made in how you feel, even though you've quit or cut back drinking, usually the missing piece is the nutrition piece. It's optimizing your body at this point.
Yeah, well said. And then as you look into the future, Dr. Scheller, I know you have your book, obviously, which is wonderful, but anything else you're maybe excited about in the next year or so, or anything else you're working on that you feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah, I'm hoping to work on another book soon in a similar but slightly different kind of space. And, for me, it's really just about continuing to educate people on this topic and for me to continue to bring solutions to you all, right? I have an online course called the Functional Sobriety Academy where you can learn how to implement these changes, get access to some of this lab testing I've mentioned, and kind of get more of that interaction with me. But really, I'm working on some other ways to help implement that or help others implement these tools and then help clinicians implement these tools into their practices as well. I think it's really, really key that not only us as consumers or folks who are interested in sobriety are educating ourselves, but we need to make sure that the healthcare providers are educated too.
Wonderful. Amazing. Hey, look, it's been amazing talking to you. Even though you're a Brick Dragon and I'm a Brick Mustang, we're supposed to be rivals. I kind of like you. I thought this was fun. We evened it out because we went to the same college, so we can be friends. But thank you so much, Dr. Scheller, for joining the Sober Strength Show.
Thank you, Jesse. It was great to be here today.
All right, everybody, that's the show, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Sober Strength podcast and spending some time with us today. We've got a favor to ask. If you enjoyed the show, would you please consider subscribing to the show and even leaving a rating and review? That simple act drastically helps us reach more people in our mission to help them live better, longer, healthier lives. You can also follow us if you'd like on Instagram and YouTube for regular tips and motivation around mental health, addiction, and so much more. Know that your support fuels our brand and is greatly appreciated. So until next time, stay strong and live deep.